All right, guys, what's going on? It's the Xfinity picks video for fast cars, fast money. A little bummed not going to be going to this race this weekend. I was living in the greater, DC area last few years. I've been able to go to Dover, see the Xfinity Series race, the Cup Series race. Even got a couple ARCA races in, which was kind of fun to see. So I'm not going to be there this weekend. Got some friends going, so I'm hoping they have a good time and hoping for good weather. Every time I went, there was rain in the forecast, or it got delayed, or we would race on Mondays, which always kind of extended the trip a little bit. But what's going on, guys? So when we get to the race preview and initial thoughts, Dover is a tough track. We don't normally see place differential coming through as much as we normally do, and maybe some other 1.5 mile tracks. Dover is technically a mile track, but it's pretty difficult. It's a driver's track. There's a pretty big discrepancy whether you have speed or not. It's pretty fun. I've always enjoyed going there and watching the races. So for me, what I'm really going to do today is I'm really going to try to focus on building around at least two, if not three lap leaders, or at least drivers I think can run up front, get fast laps. I think once I figure out who those plays are, I can kind of build around them with either place differential, value plays, plays that are just projecting well. So I think trying to figure out who those lap leaders are going to be is probably going to be your biggest priority for this slate. Me personally, there's a couple of drivers that I think are going to lead laps, while I also think the field might be playing those drivers as well. So maybe there's a couple pivot options we can look at today. So at the expensive range, you got Allgaier, Smith, Custer, Truex, Austin Hill, and AJ Allmendinger. So for me, I think my favorite play of this range is going to be Ryan Truex. Ryan Truex did win this race last year. His car looks extremely good again this year. He starts 12th, so he gives you some place differential upside. And he was also the fastest on the long run. So most of my lines today are going to start with Ryan Truex in there. I think he has a really strong chance of, being there again. I think he's going to be a contender for the win. Now, if you are playing Ryan Truex, he does start 12th. So that leaves you with kind of the narrative of, hey, if I put a driver in my line, how's he going to hit, the optimal lineup? Well, I would imagine that Ryan Truex is going to advance his position as the race progresses. I think he'll be there in stage 2 and stage 3. Well, what about stage 1? Well, stage 1, I think there's two options you can lean on. I think you can either lean on the experience of Justin Allgaier, who starts 3rd. Allgaier is very good on concrete tracks. Dover is one of his better tracks. He has showed that in practice. He qualified up towards the front. There's a lot to like about Allgaier, and DraftKings likes him a lot too if they price them up that high. So I think if you're playing Truex, you want to pair him with Allgaier, and or with how cheap he is, you can also play Brandon Jones. You can play Allgaier, Smith, or not Smith. You can play Allgaier, Truex, and Jones all in a line together. Now, Brandon Jones does start first. He's pretty fast, a lot to like there in practice. He backed it up in qualifying. But really, the biggest attraction for Brandon Jones is his price tag. He's only $8,200. So, yes, he could go out there and lead stage 1. If he does that, you're going to want him in your lines. If he doesn't do that, he can probably still run towards the front of the field, maybe, lead a handful of, more than a handful of laps, maybe pick up some fast laps. So there's a lot to like with Brandon Jones. You're kind of getting a lap leader for only $8,200, which, kind of changes the layout of your line. So those are three drivers I really like today. Most of my lines are going to have at least one, if not two, if not all three of those drivers in a line together. After that, I think, it's really up to you where you want to go. One pivot option I really like today is AJ Allmendinger. I don't know how many people are going to play him. The colored cards in general were pretty bad coming into this weekend, at least looking at practice, except for AJ. AJ was right behind Ryan Truex on the long run as far as long run speed goes. So I don't know how much attention he's going to get. I really like him for tournaments. Now, he is expensive, but he starts 10th. He gives you some place differential upside. So I'm going to try to be over the field on AJ Allmendinger. Hopefully it works out for us. I'm probably going to be under the field on Chandler Smith, though. I think a lot of people are going to like him. He just wasn't really there in practice. He didn't really like his car. Looks like they made some adjustments. He starts seventh. I still think he's going to have a good day. I just don't know DFS wise, with that price tag, if I would feel confident, playing Chandler Smith over a Justin Allgaier or over a Ryan Truex or over an AJ Allmendinger. For me, I might still get him in a couple of lines, but I'm probably going to be under the field today. Cole Custer starts 11th, probably gives you some place differential upside, might give you some fast laps. But again, I don't know if he has the car to get out front and lead laps. And that's what I really want to focus on. So, if he's expensive, so if you are plugging in Custer, you're most likely sacrificing, one of the other, lap leaders that I'm personally, higher on as far as the probability that I think they're going to lead laps. Then you have Austin Hill. He starts fourth. Just really not getting there. Again, I think he has a good, NASCAR day, just DFS wise. I don't know if he has the car to get up front and lead laps. Now, Sam Mayer is more of a place differential play. This team was pretty off in practice, was pretty slow, improved a little bit for qualifying. Now, it's a JRM car. We know I almost say JGR, but it's a JRM car. Um, he starts 20th. We know he's going to be better than that, but he's kind of expensive. There's some cheaper place differential plays on the slate. Riley Herbst, if you're playing tournaments and, everyone's playing Allgaier, everyone's playing Jones, well, who's that contrarian lap leader? It's going to be Riley Herbst. I don't think a lot of people are going to talk about him. I would imagine he's going to be pretty low owned, more of a risky play for sure. But, there's a scenario he goes out. He's the stage one, lap leader. And a lot of people aren't going to have that in their lines. I don't think it's as likely as the other scenarios, but there is a scenario where that could easily happen. He starts on the front row. It's not that crazy to think about. Jesse Love starts eighth. This is a tough track. Not really too high on either of the RCR cars. I think they just kind of run around, the top 10. Sheldon Creed starts fifth, kind of in the same boat as the RCR cars. I think has a good day. I just don't know DFS wise starting fifth if that's going to work out. I'd much rather play Sammy Smith. He starts 13th. He gives you a little bit more place differential upside. But depending on how heavy you go on the 10K range, it's going to be difficult to get to some of these plays in this range. Taylor Gray starts ninth. I think he's fine. He gives you a little bit of place differential upside. I'd probably prioritize Sammy Smith over the two just because you get 4 extra spots, basically paying the same price tag. Then we get to, Carson Kvapil. So I like him a lot. He's only $8,300 or, maybe he's $8,300. You weren't expecting that price tag for him. But, either way, you think he's overpriced or cheap, or maybe he's right where he should be. He starts 26th. Was actually pretty good in practice, pretty encouraging times. Didn't have the best qualifying effort. And he's a lot cheaper of a place differential play, than Sam Mayer. Then you got Brandon Jones. We kind of already talked about him. He doesn't need to lead laps to pay off, but I think there's a scenario where he can lead laps. I like Corey Heim a lot today too. I think everyone's going to play Kvapil. I think everyone's going to play SVG. I think everyone's going to play Williams. Well, who's another place differential play? If you are confident in those lap leaders that we talked about and you want to differentiate your line elsewhere, maybe look at Corey Heim. He's an interesting place differential option. I don't think a lot of people are going to get to just because of the other place differential options that are around there. Parker Kligerman and Ryan Sieg, basically the same play. Start around where they should run. Maybe they get lucky at the end and get an 8th, 10th place finish. That'll be a decent day, but I'd rather just pay down, just get SVG, get Josh Williams in your lines. Pretty terrible, to be honest with you, with practice, with how slow these cars were. Now, I can understand to a certain extent with SVG, he's learning this car, he's learning this track, he's learning this style of racing, and Dover is a tough track. But he starts deep in the field, and he's pretty cheap. So really easy to get both of them in lines. Josh Williams, SVG, this equipment, this team will be better. They're not going to run, in the 30s all day. If they do, I'd be shocked. Anthony Alfredo has been running pretty good this year, especially as of late. So I like him a lot for tournaments. I think he's an interesting, pivot option. Matty D starts around where he's probably going to finish. I think he just starts too high. Parker Retzlaff actually showed pretty good times. I'm not afraid to get to him in tournaments. I'm not really going to get to his teammate, though, Jeb Burton. Between the two, Retzlaff was just much faster in practice. There's a lot more convincing data around Retzlaff than there is with Burton. Jeremy Clements feels like he always starts in the teens or, the mid 20s. And again, that's where he starts again. I much rather prioritize or enjoy playing Clements when he does start in the 20s because usually he finishes in the teens. So again, he's fine. He's going to be in the player pool. Daniel Dye, I'm going to get to a decent amount as well. Kind of in the same boat as SVG and Josh Williams. Colleague Carr starting really deep in the field. Colleague just either missed it as a whole, as an organization, outside of AJ Allmendinger, or, these are just not really the most talented drivers in the field or maybe the most experienced drivers in the field when it comes to Dover. But it's a Colleague Carr starting 36. He should easily be able to get around, at least 10 cars or so before he may have to actually start, you know, putting his skills to get around, just other equipment that might be as good as the Colic equipment there. Caden Honeycutt starts 18th. Pretty good qualifying effort. A little bit more of a risky GPP play. I don't mind going there, but I'd probably rather just pay down for Kyle Sieg. Sieg did not have a great qualifying effort, but his practice times were pretty encouraging. His lap averages were pretty encouraging as well. So I do have a decent amount of Sieg in my lines. Now, Weatherman had a great qualifying run, but probably outqualified himself. Starting sixth, that's going to be difficult to pay off for DFS purposes. It's going to be hard to imagine him holding on to that type of position throughout the race, or even a top 10 is pretty unlikely. Haley Deegan starts pretty deep. This equipment's decent as long as he can just have a clean race. Her finishing towards, closer to 20th is pretty doable. Brennan Poole, all of the Alpha Prime cars just looked kind of off. They qualified decent, but their practice times were pretty bad. So I'm, a little, not confident there. JJ Yaley's in the 35, Gase machine, not the best equipment. If you're getting down to this range, I would rather just pay down for some of the cheaper options. Smithley's starts deep, but he's slow. So I think I'd rather even just go cheaper. David Starr basically starts DFL. He's not really going to lose you any points. He just needs to stay on the track. Blaine Perkins is another driver starting deep. There's not really a punt play down here. I'm like, oh, that's the guy. I think you could, mix and match them to a certain extent. I also think you don't really need to come down this low on the slate in general. Depending on how many 10K drivers you grab and, what pivot plays you have, throughout here, you don't really need to come down this low on the slate. But if you are, I don't mind coming to Honeyman. Starts a little far forward, but speed wise he's pretty fast compared to the other drivers back here. Or you say F it, I'm going to throw in Dawson Cram starting, mint salary there for 30 seconds. So again, hopefully that's helpful. I think for me, it's going to be finding those lap leaders, building around those lap leaders. I like Allgaier today. I like Truex. I like AJ Allmendinger. I like Brandon Jones. My place differential plays are going to be Quapple, SVG, Josh Williams, Daniel Dye, Corey Heim. Hopefully that's helpful. Those are the drivers I'm probably the most aggressive on, who I have the most of. That's how I'm building today. Going to be running around. Not really sure if I'll be able to watch the Dover race for Xfinity. Hopefully I can. If not, I'll at least record it and watch it at night. But we'll get the Cup video out either in the morning, of race day, or potentially even at night, kind of like I was able to do for this one. So thank you guys as always for hanging around, watching the video, supporting the channel. Really appreciate it, and catch you on the Cup video.